Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into one of the most expensive, exhausting, and quietly catastrophic decades in American professional history. The golden age of the yuppie, where the money was real, the hours were brutal, and someone in every office bathroom had a very specific reason for being in there so long. Not the Wall Street version, not the Gordon Gekko highlight reel your business school professor may or may not have screened unironically. The real one. The one that smelled like toner and cigarette smoke and $100 a gram ambition, and just slightly too much Draca Noir. If you enjoy this kind of midnight-adjacent historical reckoning, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy drifting off to mildly disturbing, deeply factual history. And a huge thank you to one of you for suggesting this one. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It is, statistically, always somehow around 4 in the morning somewhere, which, in the 1980s, would have meant the trading floor in New York was still 5.5 hours away, and someone, somewhere, was already on the phone about it. Get comfortable, lights low, fan on, blanket up. Maybe loosen the imaginary Hermes tie just a little, because you're going to be wearing it for a while. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to earn more money than your parents ever saw and still be 3 weeks behind on sleep? What happened when an entire generation decided that exhaustion was a personality trait? How did a $75 silk tie become the thing standing between you and a complete existential collapse? Did anyone actually enjoy the brie, or was it just something you put in your mouth while performing being a person who enjoyed brie? Sang. What did cocaine feel like at 11 p.m. in a midtown bathroom stall when the pitch deck was due at 7 a.m.? Could you survive a morning where the Dow dropped 22% and your phone hadn't stopped ringing since before you remembered being awake? And seriously, who was going home? Congratulations, you just woke up in Manhattan 1986. It's 5:50 a.m., the room is dark, and somewhere across the city, a market that has been climbing for 4 straight years is still, for now, climbing. Your suit is already pressed. Your alarm is already off. You are already awake. Good luck. You set the alarm for 5:50 a.m. The number is not negotiable. The number is the result of a small private arithmetic involving the express train, the elevator at 200 West Street, and the unspoken expectation that you will be at your desk before 7. You don't use the snooze function. Junior associates do not use the snooze function. You sit up, find the floor with one foot, then the other, and begin the morning that starts in the dark and ends 14 hours later in a different dark. The suit is ready, pressed, and waiting. The suit is ready. You laid it out the night before, which was technically this morning, at around 1 a.m., which is fine. The jacket is double-breasted. The shoulders are padded in a way that suggests you have convictions. The tie is Hermes, $75 in 1985, which is roughly $210 now, which you know because you did the math once, and then stopped doing it. You knot it in the bathroom mirror under a 40-watt bulb, and the knot is tight, and the knot is correct, and you will not adjust it again until the 4th drink tonight at a restaurant you can't really afford, but will absolutely attend anyway. The shower is fast, the coffee is already started, because the machine has a timer, and the machine is one of the few things in your life that does exactly what it's supposed to do on the schedule it promised. You drink half a cup standing at the counter, coat on, briefcase in hand, watching the window go from black to grey. The city doesn't quite wake up this early. It just thins out. The night shift ghosts are still moving around down there, and you are already among them. Let's talk about the commute. It takes 22 minutes on a good day. On a good day, you get a seat. A man named Terence, who works at a firm 3 blocks from yours, and whose business card lists 4 credentials after his name, stands next to you gripping the overhead bar every morning without ever making eye contact. This is correct behaviour. You are both pretending you are alone. The train smells of damp wool and someone's coffee, and the specific anxiety of people performing confidence in enclosed spaces. You get to your desk at 6:47. This is not early. This is table stakes. Your senior associate, a man named Greg, who has not taken a vacation in 14 months and speaks exclusively in declarative sentences, is already there. He has been there since 6. His jacket is already off. This is a statement. You keep yours on for another 20 minutes as a counter-statement, which you will never openly acknowledge, and neither will he. The desk smells like toner and old paper. The fluorescent light above you hums at a frequency that you've stopped noticing the way you've stopped noticing your own heartbeat, which is, if the last physical you skipped is any indication, probably working harder than it should be. The IBM Selectric from 2 years ago has been replaced with a PC that nobody fully trusts yet. The keyboard has a different click. Harder, more decisive. Like it's already disappointed in whatever you're about to type. By 9 o'clock you've returned 4 calls, drafted 2 memos, and eaten a granola bar over a garbage can because there was no other moment. Lunch, when it happens, will be 20 minutes at a deli counter that smells of pastrami and burnt coffee, and you'll eat standing up, and you'll think about the $250 dinner you're having on Thursday with a client who will order the sea bass, and talk about his boat. The math between those 2 meals is the whole decade, really. Small, discrete arithmetic. You carry it in your chest all day like a second set of keys. You stand in front of the closet at 6:04 a.m. The closet has rules. The wool blend double-breasted suit goes on Mondays and Wednesdays, because Wednesdays are partner meeting days, and Mondays establish the week. The Brooks Brothers Oxford goes underneath, button-down collar, never spread. The padded shoulder blazer goes on if the weather is uncertain or the meeting is. Nothing in here was bought casually. Each item carries a tag of social information that the office will read in the elevator and adjust its expectations of you accordingly before you have spoken. Let's talk about the tie. It's not a tie. It's a $75 argument you win before the other person opens their mouth. The Hermes silk, small print repeating pattern, nothing loud, nothing that announces itself, costs $75 in 1985 dollars, which is roughly $210 today, which means you are knotting approximately 1 tank of gas around your neck every morning and calling it professional restraint. The neophytes wear the wrong pattern. You can tell within 4 seconds. The senior associate 3 offices down wears his with a full Windsor knot, and the full Windsor knot communicates something specific about how he feels about junior staff. He has never said this out loud. He doesn't need to. The tie does the work. The mouth doesn't. The Rolex goes on the left wrist. Not all models announce themselves. A Datejust in 1985 runs $1,500 to $3,500 depending on the bracelet. And the point is not that people see it immediately. The point is that they see it, eventually. And when they do, the conversation that doesn't happen carries everything. You snap the clasp. The watch is cold. The watch is always cold. It warms up during the commute, and by the time you reach the lobby, it is indistinguishable from your skin, which is the goal. A watch that looks like it belongs on you is a watch that's working. Downstairs, your neighbour Gerald is reversing the BMW 325i out of the garage with the careful 2-handed precision of someone who financed it aggressively. Gerald is a real estate attorney. Gerald parks the Beamer on the street when clients are visiting, which is basically the Stanley Cup of 1986, except it costs $25,000, and pigeons sit on it. Gerald nods at you. You nod back. Neither of you has eaten breakfast. This is understood. The shoes matter more than people admit. Cap-toe Oxford, black, Bally or Cole Haan, mirror polished, not matte, never matte. Matt is a junior associate from a state school trying his best. The heel click on the marble lobby of your building is a sound with a specific social register, and you have clocked it enough times to know which of your colleagues is arriving by the sound alone before the elevator doors open. Derek from the 7th floor clicks unevenly because he favours his left, which is a small vulnerability, and the office knows it, and the office doesn't say anything, which is how the office manages these things. The briefcase. Leather, structured, not soft. Soft is for people who don't have enough in the briefcase to justify the structure. Inside, a yellow legal pad, 3 pens that actually work, and whatever you didn't finish last night, which is almost everything. The briefcase is not decorative. The briefcase is a portable representation of your net value to the firm, and the firm has an opinion about it. You click it shut. The clasp has a particular sound. The clasp knows you're running 4 minutes behind. The clasp doesn't care. Out the door. The shoulder pads of the blazer catch the door frame slightly on the way out, which happens more often than it should for a garment that costs $300. The pads redistribute your silhouette into something broader, sturdier, and architecturally committed to the space you are entering. In 1986, the shoulder pad is not an accident of fashion. It is a load-bearing wall. You stand at the bedroom mirror with a strip of silk in your hands. The silk costs $75. The silk costs more than dinner with your parents in Queens. You loop it once, cross it under, pull it through, and the 4-in-hand knot forms itself the way it has formed itself every morning since law school. The fabric remembers, the mirror does not. The man you see in it is the man the office will see, and the knot is a small daily contract you sign with him. The tie is Hermes. This matters. Not Bloomingdale's house brand, not Brooks Brothers. Hermes, with the orange box still in the closet because you have not thrown it away, because the box is part of it. The box is doing work. An Hermes tie in 1985 runs $75, which is roughly what a New York City public school teacher earns in 2.5 days. You wear this to work like it is ordinary. It mostly is. Let's talk about the ritual around the tie, because the tie is not the whole story. The whole story starts at 6:15. The alarm goes off. Not a gentle chime, not the current situation where your phone negotiates with you, a hard mechanical ring that has no concept of gradual. You silence it before it wakes her, or you don't, and either way the morning has begun with a small failure. The bathroom is yours for 11 minutes. The shower runs hot enough to function as a medical procedure. The shave happens in 3 passes, with a Gillette Atra and a can of Edge that has been refilled once already and is starting to lie about its pressure. By 6:40, you are dressed from the waist down. The tie is last. Marcus is a first-year associate 2 offices down, who ties his Windsor with the focus, precision, and ease of a man who has folded geometry into ritual. He does it without looking. He does it while reading his calendar. The Windsor is slightly aggressive as a knot choice. It telegraphs something. Nobody's quite decided what, but the managing partners have noticed, and noticing is a form of opinion at Cravath. Marcus does not know this yet. He will. The 4-in-hand you're wearing is quieter, confident without announcement. This is the point. The whole wardrobe system operates as a pressure differential, enough to register, not enough to be named. You can't be caught trying. Trying is the one thing that undoes all of it. The BMW in the garage, the cap toes, the briefcase with the brass clasp that snaps shut like a verdict. If any of it looks like effort, it becomes costume. Costume is fatal, and yet the effort is enormous. The tie alone takes 3 minutes, if you want the dimple centered. The dimple is optional in theory. In practice, the dimple is not optional. You have never once seen a senior partner at the firm without the dimple. This tells you nothing. Officially, it tells you everything actually. Outside the window, the city is already running. A sanitation truck reverses down the block, with its backup alarm going, a mechanical complaint nobody answers. The sky is the colour of an overexposed photograph. Somewhere a cab honks. You pull the narrow end of the silk through the loop, settle the knot against your collar, and check the length. Tip should graze the belt buckle, not above, not below, not the kind of thing anyone will mention, and not the kind of thing anyone will miss. The mirror returns a verdict. The verdict is acceptable. You pick up the briefcase. The day begins. The $75, for the record, is not something you think about consciously anymore. It has been absorbed into the cost of the life, the way the $90 parking, and the $12 lunch, and the dry cleaning ticket, folded in your jacket pocket, have all been absorbed. The number stopped being a number sometime around your second year. Now it's just silk, just a knot, just the thing you do before the thing you do. You step into the lobby at 6:32 a.m. The doorman has been on since 6 and has already seen 4 versions of you go past. Banker, banker, lawyer, lawyer. He nods. You nod. He walks to the curb. He raises a hand. The cab arrives within a margin so consistent it stops being remarkable and starts being weather. You are inside a yellow Crown Victoria, before the door of the building has finished closing behind you. The choreography is not friendship. It is a small repeated machine, daily, brief and exact. The doorman's name is Gerald. You know this because there is a small gold pin on his jacket that says Gerald, and because Gerald has opened your door every weekday morning for 16 months, and twice on Saturdays you'd prefer not to think about. You have never asked Gerald about his commute. Gerald takes 2 trains and a bus. The commute is an hour and 20 minutes each way. The lobby marble you cross in 8 seconds took Gerald 2 hours and 40 minutes to arrive at. These facts coexist without comment. Let's talk about the cab. It smells like pine air freshener and something under the pine air freshener that the pine air freshener is losing the argument against. The driver has a radio on, news, traffic, static, and a laminated photo of 2 children taped to the visor. The city moves past the window in the particular way it does before 8 in the morning, which is to say, honestly, fewer suits, more coats. A man on the corner of 53rd selling coffee from a cart with a handwritten sign. The handwriting is better than yours. You make $94,000 a year. You have a cab routine. You review documents. Or you rehearse. Or you do neither and stare out the window performing the facial expression of reviewing documents. A paralegal named Diane, who sits 3 rows from your office, takes the subway. She's read War and Peace twice on the 6 train. You know this because she mentioned it once, and you filed it under things that make you feel obscurely competitive about a Russian novel you have not opened since 1979. The fare runs about $6. You tip 2, always 2, with the precise consistency of a man who has decided the issue once and does not want to reopen it. The driver doesn't look up. The city is full of people being tipped exactly what you tip, by people exactly like you, in cabs exactly like this, headed to offices that smell exactly like your office. There's a word for that. Several, probably. You don't reach for any of them. The morning changes register. You exit the cab on 47th and walk a block and a half to the building. The walk takes 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes you pass a man asleep in a coat on a heating grate, 2 pigeons with apparent opinions about a paper bag, a woman in scrubs eating half a sandwich while walking in the opposite direction with the focused urgency of someone already late for someone else's emergency. The city in 1986 does not arrange these images neatly. It just stacks them unsorted, like a file room nobody locked. The homeless population in New York has roughly tripled since 1979. The man on the grate has a blanket that was once green. You notice the blanket the same way you notice the pigeons. Then you notice you noticed, and that is the most uncomfortable 4 seconds of the morning. And then the revolving door of your building spins you inside, and the marble is cool, and the security desk smells like burnt coffee, and someone has already left a voice message at your extension at 6:48 a.m. You are at your desk by 5 to 7. Gerald is still in the lobby. The cab driver is already somewhere on the FDR. The man on the grate is still on the grate. The machine has distributed everyone correctly. You sit down at a desk that has 2 machines on it. On the left, an IBM Selectric II, the typewriter every secretary on the floor still uses for letters that have to be signed. On the right, an IBM PC-AT, the personal computer your firm bought for every associate 8 months ago. The Selectric is heavy, decisive, and permanent. The PC has a beige tower and a blinking cursor that asks for a command line. Today you have to use both. The day begins with a small private question. Which one first? The Selectric sounds like a decision. She moral sounds like a decision. Every keystroke lands with a satisfying thunk that implies permanence, implies that what you're typing matters, that the letter will arrive, that someone will read it and respond in kind on their own. Selectric somewhere across the city. The carriage return is a small lever, a physical commitment. The machine weighs 31 pounds. 10. It does not move when you bump it. It doesn't have to. The PC is different. The PC is patient in a way that feels slightly threatening. It waits. The cursor blinks every half second, a rhythm that doesn't match your heartbeat or your breathing, but somehow gets inside both. The keyboard is lighter, the travel shorter, the sound more like suggestion than conclusion. You type a sentence, and it appears on the green-black screen with no more ceremony than if you'd spoken into a room with bad acoustics. Saving the file requires a floppy disk. The floppy disk is not the size you think it should be, and you're still not sure why. The PC waits. It is very good at waiting. The desk itself, its government surplus grey under the machines, and a legal pad, and a coffee mug that says Hey Yar Ave Law, and a Rolodex with 300 cards, some of which are for people who no longer work where the card says they work. The Rolodex doesn't update itself. That's your problem. Martin, the partner's secretary, stops at your doorframe at 7:12 to confirm whether the Brennan memo should go out on firm letterhead or plain bond. He's holding the unsigned draft with both hands like it might be contagious. The question requires you to know something about Brennan's standing with the senior partners, which you sort of know, and about the firm's letterhead policy for external correspondence, which you thought you knew, but are no longer certain of. You tell Martin letterhead. He nods with the careful blankness of someone who has heard a wrong answer before and learned to wait it out. He takes the draft. He goes to the Selectric. The PC is better for certain things. Drafting, tracking revisions, printing multiple copies with the daisy wheel printer, attached to the tower by a cable that crosses the floor like a trip hazard. The first time you printed 40 copies of a 40-page brief, you stood by the printer for 22 minutes, listening to it produce each page with a sound like a very small, very determined robot, typing everything by hand. It was not fast. It was faster than the Selectric. Both of those things were true at once. By 1986, roughly half the associates on your floor use the PC for most drafting. The other half still prefer the Selectric for anything important, anything that will be seen by someone above them, anything with the firm's name at the top. There's a theory that the Selectric makes your prose look more serious. Nobody says this out loud. Everybody believes it. The two machines share your desk the way two very different people share a small apartment, politely, without resolving anything. The Selectric doesn't know the PC is there. The PC, for its part, doesn't care. It's already running 3 other processes you didn't open and can't explain. In 8 years, the Selectric will be in a storage closet. In 12, the closet will be cleared out, and no one will know where the selectives went. But right now, this morning, they're both on your desk, and the cursor is still blinking, and Martin is still at the Selectric down the hall, and you can hear it from here. It sounds like something being decided. It always does. You walk the corridor at 7:05 a.m. and the floor reads itself to you in offices. The corner offices are partners. The window offices are senior associates. The interior offices are mid-level associates. The bullpen where you sit is for first and second year associates and floats around a copier. The hierarchy is not written down anywhere. It does not need to be. Every closed door, Every nameplate, every distance from the corner is a sentence in a paragraph the floor recites every morning, and you have memorized the punctuation. The copier. It sits in the bullpen the way a campfire sits in a clearing. Everyone orbits it. Nobody admits they came for the warmth. The machine jams on Tuesdays with a consistency that feels personal. A second year named Doug kicks it once, firmly, on the lower left panel, and the jam releases. He does this without breaking stride, without looking down, the way a person develops a relationship with something they resent but depend on entirely. The carpet changes at the partner corridor. This is not a metaphor. The bullpen carpet is a low-pile institutional grey that has absorbed 5 years of coffee, ambition, and small private resignations, and asks nothing of you emotionally. The partner corridor carpet is a deeper, warmer tone, something between burgundy and the colour of certainty, and it runs all the way to a set of double doors with handles that are actually brass. Notice the handles every time. They notice nothing back. Now, your nameplate. It's a small thing, a slot on the wall beside your office door, or in your case, a slot on the edge of your bullpen partition. The plastic insert slides in and out, which is how you know the firm has considered the possibility of your departure more carefully than your arrival. A partner's nameplate is engraved into the wall, with a font that communicates permanence and mild disdain for anyone who would question it. Partners have a pot in their offices, or rather, someone brings a pot to their offices, a specific someone, at a specific time, without being asked. Senior associates use the kitchen on the corridor and return with a mug that has their initials on it. You use the communal pot in the bullpen, which was brewed at 6:45 by whoever arrived first, and has been sitting on the burner since, developing opinions. By 8 a.m., it tastes like the smell of toner given physical form. You drink it anyway. There's a second cup in your future, and it will be the same. A woman named Denise, third-year associate, window office, just barely, passes your partition at 7:20 carrying a yellow legal pad and a highlighter in each hand like she's been interrupted mid-thought by the entire concept of walking. She doesn't look up. The legal pad has 3 pages turned back already. It's 7:20 a.m. The highlighters are 2 different colours, which means the system is more developed than you've been told about. Of course, the conference rooms have their own grammar. The big one, glass walls, oval table, 14 chairs, is for clients and is always slightly cold, as if the firm is trying to preserve something inside it. You've been in it twice, once for an all-hands meeting where a senior partner said the words bandwidth, and then bandwidth again, and once to retrieve a forgotten exhibit binder at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, which you did at a jog because the lights were on a timer and had already begun deciding the meeting was over. The bathroom is the one unranked space on the floor. This is well understood and quietly appreciated. A managing partner and a first-year share the same fixtures, the same hand soap that smells faintly of industrial lemon, the same paper towels that disintegrate before the job is done. Whatever else the floor communicates, the bathroom communicates nothing. It is, in its way, the most democratic room in the building. The marble is very good, though. The marble has opinions about that. You sit down, and the phones begin. The console on your desk has 4 lines. Line 1 is the partner who needs the brief by 10. Line 2 is opposing counsel returning a call from yesterday that you cannot immediately remember placing. Line 3 is the firm's main switchboard, rerouting something that probably should not have been routed to you. Line 4 blinks because it is on hold. The phones do not stop. They will not stop. They are not designed to stop. They are designed to rank you, and they do, all morning. The 4-line console is sleek, beige, and quietly hostile. The console has very little to say beyond these 3 points, but it says them continuously, from 8 in the morning until the cleaning crew arrives, which is when it stops only because you finally left. The hold button, it is a small orange square. It blinks at a rhythm designed by nobody in particular, and yet calibrated, apparently, to produce low-grade existential dread. Whoever is on line 4 has been waiting long enough that they're now either furious or gone, and you won't know which until you pick up, and you can't pick up because line 1 is still talking. A paralegal named Sandra keeps a handwritten log of how many times each associate uses the hold button per day. She does not share this log with anyone. It exists purely for Sandra. The morning call pattern has a shape to it. The first 40 minutes are institutional. Partners, opposing counsel, clerks confirming filing times, a court reporter with a question about transcript format. The next hour gets stranger. Hull. A client calls directly, bypassing the partner who owns the relationship. And you have to be warm and competent and not at all alarmed, because you are alarmed. An associate from another floor calls to ask if you got the memo, and you have to say yes, because saying no means you missed the memo, and missing the memo means something. The memo is about parking validation. It doesn't matter. The Selectric isn't a Selectric anymore. It's a PC. An IBM with a monitor the colour of old mustard, and a keyboard that clicks with the specific authority of a machine that knows it replaced something. The Selectric had a hum. This has a click. The click is louder. It announces each keystroke to the room, which means the room always knows whether you're typing or sitting very still thinking about what you're going to type, and these are two different professional signals. Marcus, a second year across the aisle, has taped a post-it note to his console that says Brave. He put it there in November. It's now April. He has not looked at it in 3 months, because it's behind line 4, and line 4 is always blinking. Marcus takes his lunch at the deli counter downstairs in 19 minutes, which is 1 minute under the informal threshold for people who have their workload managed, and 1 minute over the threshold for people who are panicking. He has found this to be the correct 19 minutes. Of course, there's no such thing as a message that can wait. Every message arrives marked urgent or marked with the absence of a marking, which is worse, because unmarked messages from partners carry a specific ambient weight, the weight of a thing that was so obviously urgent it didn't need to say so. You write the message on a pink slip. The pink slip goes in the pile. The pile is not a system. It is a monument to the distance between the hours available and the hours required, and it grows, quietly, with the patience of something that knows it will outlast you. The phones are still going. Line 1 resolved, line 2 resolved. Line 3 turned out to be a wrong extension. Line 4, when you finally pick it up, is a dial tone. The person on line 4 has been gone for 35 minutes. You write their name on a pink slip anyway. The pink slip joins the pile. The pile does not comment. The pile has seen this before. You open the small green timekeeping notebook on your desk at 7:22 a.m. The notebook divides every working hour into 10 units of 6 minutes each, brief, granular, and billable. Each unit must be assigned a client matter number and a brief description of what you did during it. The firm requires 2,200 billable hours a year. 2,200 billable hours is, on paper, less than 9 a day. In practice, it is closer to 13. The math is hostile. The notebook does not care. It exists only to convert your weekday into a series of 6-minute receipts. The 6-minute increment. 6 minutes sounds short. 6 minutes is long enough to review a contract clause, field a frantic partner call, or sit completely still in your chair, staring at a wall while your left hand trembles slightly from the third coffee. The increment doesn't distinguish between these. You assign it a matter number either way. The description field is 4 lines. You use 2 because nothing you did in those 6 minutes requires 4 lines, and the ambition required to fill 4 lines has not survived the morning. The notebook is a Redweld, soft cover, slightly smaller than a paperback. Somewhere on the 4th floor, a billing coordinator named Phyllis collects these every Friday in a canvas tote that she carries with the expression of someone transporting evidence. She doesn't read them. She forwards them. They become, eventually, an invoice. So, the invoice goes to a client who is also billing in 6-minute increments to someone else in a different city. It's billing all the way down. By 1986, a first-year associate at Cravath, Swain & Moore is making $65,000 a year. An NYC public school teacher is making $28,000. The associate works 100 hours a week and still can't account for where Tuesday went. The teacher works 60 and brings home a tote bag full of papers shell-grade at her kitchen table after her kids are asleep. Neither of them has a green notebook, but only one of them is required to prove it. You are not paid for the hour. You are paid for the billable fraction of the hour. And the billable fraction of the hour does not include the 20 minutes you spent waiting for a partner to get off the phone, or the 40 minutes you spent rewriting a memo he didn't read, or the 6-minute unit you've already written off because you can't remember exactly what you did and the description would read existing. The notebook has no category for existing. You are not billing for existing. A senior associate named Richard keeps 2 notebooks, one for actual time, one for what he'll submit. The gap between them is about 3 hours a day. He calls this professional judgment. The firm calls it expected behavior. Nobody calls it anything out loud. Richard adjusts his Rolex date just between calls, a gesture with the energy of someone straightening a painting in a burning room. Of course, you could simply bill everything. Some do. The partners call this aggressive. The clients call it something else, but only after the relationship ends. And by then the invoice is paid and the notebook is in a box somewhere. Archived. Admissible. The billing record is the one thing in this office that lasts longer than anyone who made it. By 8:15 you've logged 4 units. 2 are defensible. 1 is optimistic. 1 is, technically, the cab ride you took at 6:45 that you've categorized as transit review of overnight materials, which is accurate in the sense that you did glance at the folder. The notebook accepts this without comment. The notebook accepts everything. It has the moral flexibility of a very expensive notepad, which is exactly what it is. You leave the office at 12:50 p.m. for what the firm calls lunch. You walk 3 blocks to a deli that has been on this corner since 1962 and order a pastrami on rye, a half-sour pickle, and a black coffee. You carry the white paper bag back to your desk. You eat at your keyboard with one hand and read a deposition transcript with the other, fast, focused, and faintly bored. The pickle juice does not get on the deposition. You have practiced. The whole event takes 19 minutes, and you bill the 20th. The deli is called something like Manny's or Loose or Hulse, a name that belongs to a person who has been dead since 1978, but whose laminated menu still lists the prices from 1981. The guy behind the counter, whose actual name is Victor, slices your pastrami without looking at you. He has never looked at you. He slices pastrami the way a concert pianist plays scales, automatic, complete, slightly contemptuous. You are not a customer to Victor. You are a recurring delay between him and the next customer, who is also you, tomorrow. The bag. It's not a bag. It's a warm white paper envelope the size of a small decision, already translucent at the bottom where the mustard is staging a quiet protest. You carry it back through the lobby with your badge clipped to your lapel and your Hermes tie tucked into your shirt, so the mustard protest stays hypothetical. The tie costs $75. Your dry cleaner charges $12 to handle a mustard incident. You have done this math at least once during a client call. The desk lunch is not a habit. It's a philosophy. The Bill of Rights for this particular philosophy is simple. You don't have time, and admitting you don't have time is itself a form of status. A long lunch is for managing directors. A 20-minute pastrami at a keyboard is for someone on the way to becoming one. This is the logic. You have accepted this logic. The logic has never once bought you lunch. Meanwhile, 3 floors above you, a senior partner named Gerald is at the Quilted Giraffe on East 50th, eating duck breast with a sauce that has been reduced to something the texture of a rumour, and billing that lunch to a client code that does not, technically, have anything to do with duck. Gerald's lunch takes 2 hours. Gerald does not carry a white bag. Gerald has a table. Gerald is always already seated when his guest arrives, because Gerald's assistant called ahead, and because Gerald is Gerald. You know his name, because it's on the wall by the elevator. You have never spoken to him. The coffee is black and comes in a paper cup with a Greek key pattern on the side. Blue-white. The words, "We are happy to serve you" in cheerful font. Every deli in Manhattan uses this cup. It is the one constant of New York City professional life, more reliable than the 6 train, more present than natural light. You drink it at your desk while the deposition transcript absorbs your full attention and the coffee absorbs nothing and cools at a pace that suggests it has given up on you specifically. By 1987, a dinner for 2 with wine at a restaurant like the one Gerald is presumably also patronizing runs $200 to $300. Your lunch cost $4 and change. You are not calculating the gap. You are calculating billable hours. The gap is just something that exists in the room. The way the toner smell from the Xerox machine exists in the room. Constant ambient, not discussed. An attorney named Sandra eats her lunch the same way, at the desk, also a pastrami, also a coffee, except she finishes in 16 minutes because she spent 3 of hers answering a question from a paralegal who knocked without waiting. She does not bill the 16th. She has learned faster than you not to bill time spent being interrupted. This is not written anywhere. It is understood the way the dress code is understood, through a series of small corrections that never announce themselves as corrections. You walk into the men's room on the 34th floor at 2:47 p.m. The marble is grey, polished and slightly forgiving, and the mirrors are clean. You take the 3rd stool. You close the door. You unfold a small white wax paper envelope that has been in your inside jacket pocket since lunch. The envelope contains, by your supplier's reliable scale, a gram of cocaine that cost you $90 at Elaine's last Thursday. You are about to do something that everyone you work with also does, and that nobody in this building will discuss with you in any room, with a window. The $90. A New York City public school teacher earns $28,000 a year in 1986, which works out to roughly $13 an hour before taxes, which means the gram in your pocket cost that teacher nearly 7 hours of standing in front of children explaining long division. You are not thinking about this. You are thinking about the 3 o'clock meeting and the pitch deck that isn't finished, and whether Hannigan noticed that your numbers on the Meridian account were, in your own private estimation, optimistic. By 1985, roughly 22 million Americans had tried cocaine. The cocaine-related emergency room visit count rose 110% between 1981 and 1985. These are public health statistics. They do not feel like public health statistics from inside the 3rd stall on the 34th floor. They feel like everybody just discovered something useful. The logistics are brief. A small key, your actual office key, the one on the ring with the gym fob, a quick tap, a practiced motion, 2 lines on the tank lid. The marble is cold. The marble is very good marble. Someone paid for good marble in here, and you find yourself briefly grateful to whoever signed off on that particular line item. You are done in under 2 minutes. You fold the envelope, back inside pocket. You flush. Not because there is anything to flush, but because the sound is appropriate. The feeling arrives in approximately 40 seconds. Not a feeling, exactly. More like the removal of a weight you had stopped noticing. The pitch deck rearranges itself in your head. The Meridian numbers look acceptable now, maybe even good. Hannigan probably didn't notice. The meeting will be fine. You wash your hands with the soap that smells like cedar, which the building also paid for, and you straighten your Hermes tie in the mirror, $75, the one with the small repeating bridle pattern, and you look, by any reasonable standard, like a person who just used the bathroom. Douglas from Structured Finance is at the sink when you come out of the stall. Douglas nods. You nod. Douglas has a very similar inside pocket. Neither of you mentions this. It's the most honest conversation you'll have all day. The crash arrives, typically, around 6:15. It has the texture of a very specific disappointment. Not quite sadness, not quite exhaustion, closer to the feeling of reading an email you are supposed to want to receive and feeling nothing. By that point, you're still at your desk, which is where you're supposed to be, so the scheduling works out. The body treats the crash as a moral failing. The body has a lot of opinions about your choices, and none of them are useful before the 7 o'clock call with Tokyo. Len Bias was 22. The Celtics drafted him on June 17th, 1986. He died 40 hours later, cocaine-induced cardiac arrest. The newspapers handled it as athletics. The 34th floor bathroom did not handle it at all. You walk into the conference room at 4 p.m. There are 7 other associates around the table, 2 senior partners at the head, and a stack of bound diligence binders that someone has color-coded with adhesive tabs. The meeting will run an hour and a half. 3 of the people at this table have used cocaine in the last 40 minutes. You are one of them. The meeting is fast, polished and brittle, and superficially indistinguishable from any other Tuesday afternoon meeting at this firm. Whitfield laughs at one of his own jokes. 2 of the associates laugh slightly faster than the joke deserves. Let's talk about what the meeting looks like from the outside. The senior partner at the head, his name is Whitfield, and he has a way of uncapping his pen that suggests he once considered becoming a surgeon, is asking about the indemnification clause on page 47. Someone answers, someone else adds a footnote. The binders open and close in sequence, a kind of paper accordion. The conference room has a view of 6th Avenue. Nobody looks at it. The window is not the point of the window. Whitfield taps the page twice with his uncapped pen, slowly, deliberately, and with the small theatrical patience of a man who knows the room. He's waiting. You answer cleanly, and with a specific reference to the Delaware precedent, because the chemical burn at the back of your throat has been replaced, approximately 25 minutes ago, by a sensation that is best described as knowing everything. You don't know everything, but right now your brain is sincerely convinced otherwise, and your brain is very persuasive. The math gets strange. You arrived at 7:45 this morning. It is now 4 in the afternoon. That is 8 hours and 15 minutes, which sounds like a work day, except that the work day doesn't end until 9 or 10, and sometimes not until the car service home at midnight, and sometimes not until you're back at 7:45 the next morning, having slept in the clothes you wore to the car. Junior associates at Skadden Arps and their counterparts at Cravath are logging 80 to 100 hours a week as a structural feature of the job, not an anomaly. The body was not designed for this. The body lodged a formal complaint sometime around week 3. The complaint was denied. A woman named Carolyn, 2 seats to your left, has been in this building since 6 this morning. She's the one who color-coded the binders. The tabs are color-coded by jurisdiction, not by date, which was the smarter call, and Whitfield has now twice reached for the green tab without being told it was green. Carolyn is drinking her 3rd coffee. The cup has a ring on the bottom from where she set it down on her own notepad 40 minutes ago and forgot. She writes around the ring. She doesn't mention the ring. The ring is just part of the notepad now. Whitfield closes the binder on page 47 and writes a number in the margin in pencil. The number is 1.8. The number is the time he wants to bill this meeting at when his secretary types it up. Your own legal pad has 1.8 written on it already, in the upper right corner, in your own handwriting, from before the meeting started. Everyone bills in advance. Everyone adjusts later if the meeting overruns. The billable hour target this year is 2,200. Your sister teaches 3rd grade in Queens for 28,000. You haven't told her your number. She hasn't asked. The meeting ends at 5:35. Whitfield recoups his pen. The binders go back into their box. Someone from the copy room will collect them later, at a time you won't notice, because at 5:35 there's already another meeting starting on 14. You gather your legal pad, 4 pages of notes, a small diagram, and a reminder you wrote yourself at the top of page 1 that says only, "Call back Thursday." You have no memory of writing this. Thursday is 2 days away. Calm, it will arrive with the velocity of something coming at you from a direction you forgot to watch. You pick up the phone at 7:18 p.m. and dial the home number from memory. Your spouse picks up on the third ring. There is dinner noise in the background. A pan, a child, a television. You say the sentence you have said on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday this week already. You are going to be late. You don't know how late. You will sleep at the office if it goes past 1. The conversation lasts 90 seconds. Both of you have memorized the script. Neither of you has rewritten it in 2 years. The office at 7:18 p.m. is a different country from the office at 9 a.m. Quieter, dimmer, and slightly haunted. The fluorescent lights don't know this. They're still going, unblinking, the same yellow-white hum. They've been running since before lunch, since before the conference room, since before the call you didn't take from your dentist. Half the floor has emptied. The other half hasn't. The ones who've stayed aren't staying because they need to. They're staying because someone senior is still at their desk, and leaving before the senior person leaves is a career statement nobody wants to make out loud. You are all, in this way, held hostage by a man who forgot to have dinner plans. It's not dinner, it's a paper bag from the deli 3 blocks down, the one that smells of pastrami and burnt coffee and the ambitions of 1,000 identical evenings. Inside, a sandwich wrapped in wax paper, a can of something, a cookie that you'll eat first because the day has taken something from you that only a dry chocolate chip cookie can temporarily restore. You eat it at your desk, over the document you're still revising, and at no point does this feel unusual. This is dinner. It has a napkin. It counts. Your spouse, by an arrangement nobody negotiated, has cooked the dinner you are not home to eat. Your spouse has rescheduled the pediatrician appointment you rescheduled twice already. Your spouse will put the child to bed tonight with a story that does not include you. Your spouse calls this Tuesday. Marcella, who handles childcare for the family 2 floors above your office in the same building, different elevator bank, different economy entirely, has been there since 7 this morning. She takes the D train home at 8:30. She does this 5 days a week for $14,000 a year, which in 1987 Manhattan buys her a shared apartment in a neighborhood that your colleagues will not visit and will shortly begin pricing her out of. Marcella does not photograph well for the lifestyle section. Back at your desk there's a specific weight to the hour. Not tiredness, your past tiredness, into the pressurized clarity that lives on the other side of it, the kind that makes you feel briefly brilliant and will present the invoice tomorrow morning at 6:30. You pour another cup of coffee from the pot that has been burning since 3 o'clock. The coffee at this hour is a liquid opinion about how your choices have gone. You drink it anyway. Douglas from the desk 2 over is on his own 90-second home call. You can tell by the pauses. You look at your document. Both of you are performing the same scene in adjacent booths. Somewhere across town, the restaurant where you were supposed to be tonight, the one with the $240 dinner for 2, and the wine list that requires a commitment, is seating someone else at your table. They ordered the arugula. They seem fine. The candle is lit. Nobody is going to be late. You arrive at Lutece on East 50th Street at 8:24 p.m. 6 minutes before the reservation, because the maitre d' will note the 4 minutes you stood at the bar and reward them on a future booking. You are meeting 2 clients and a senior partner. The dinner will run 3.5 hours and cost the firm approximately $420 before tip. The wine list is a leather binder thicker than a Bible. The senior partner orders for the table. You are here to listen and to remember everything anyone says, in order. The food, not the food, the signal. The quenelle of foie gras that arrives on a plate roughly the size of a frisbee, centred, small, perfect, and almost impossible to eat in fewer than 3 bites. The sauce describes a careful arc. A single sprig of something green observes the scene from the upper left. You eat it in 3 bites and understand that the point was never consumption, it was acknowledgement. You have acknowledged the arc. The evening may proceed. The clients are in derivatives. One of them, whose name is Richard Pell, adjusts his Rolex date just twice during the appetizer course, once when he says the number 60 million, and again when someone at the next table laughs too loudly. The adjustment is not about time. The Rolex knows this. Richard knows this. The Rolex continues to keep perfect time anyway, because it has professional standards. The senior partner orders a burgundy, not a burgundy, a specific burgundy from a specific domain in a specific year, stated to the sommelier with the cadence of a man reciting a home address. The sommelier nods with what can only be described as gratitude. The bottle arrives wrapped in a white cloth as though it has just completed surgery. You are poured approximately 4 ounces. You say it's lovely. You have no idea if it's lovely. You make a note to find out what domaine means before the next dinner. The conversation shifts. Not to business, never to business directly, not at Lutte, not at this stage of the evening, to the market, to the quarter, to someone Richard knows, who made an interesting move in October. You listen. You remember. The entrees arrive. A rack of lamb for the senior partner. Something with a reduction for the other client, whose name you have already lost to the ambient sound of silverware and proximity to greatness. You ordered the fish. The fish is correct. It does not draw attention to itself. Good fish understands the room. By the second bottle, Richard Pell is talking about his place in Sag Harbor, not bragging, narrating, which is the more evolved form. The square footage appears in the sentence disguised as a complaint about renovation. The pool is mentioned as a burden. You nod. The senior partner nods. The other client nods. The nodding in this room is extremely well funded. The dessert menu arrives. It is also leather. Someone orders the soufflé, which requires 22 minutes and an emotional commitment. You order the tarte tatin because it's already made, and you have learned something tonight about your own limitations. The coffee comes in cups the size of thimbles, strong enough to stand up and leave on their own. It is now 11:17. You have been at this table since 8:30, and the conversation has not once touched the actual business purpose of the dinner. This is correct. This is the dinner working. The bill arrives in a small leather folder, which the senior partner takes without opening. He signs it the way you'd sign something you've already read 1,000 times. The clients thank him. They thank you, though what they're thanking you for is unclear. Your presence, perhaps, your fish order, your consistent nodding. Outside on 50th Street, a town car idles for Richard Pell. You shake hands on the sidewalk. Or someone says, "Well, talk Thursday." Nobody writes it down. You take a cab back downtown. It's 11:40. You have a brief due tomorrow at 8. The cab smells of air freshener and effort. Through the window, a man is sleeping on a heating grate outside a building that has a doorman. The doorman is looking at something else. You look at your notes from dinner. You have written the word domaine and circled it. You have also written Arpel, Sag Harbor, pool, renovation. This is what you were there to learn. Taikoa. This is what you were there to learn. The fish was not the point. You read the menu at Lutèce, and the menu refuses to help you. The dishes are described in French with brief English clarifications that clarify nothing. The portions, when they arrive, will be the size of the palm of your hand. The prices, when they arrive, will be the size of a week of your assistant's salary. You are expected to order the lobster bisque, the duck breast with sun-dried cherries, and a half bottle of something the partner has already gestured at. You will not eat half of it. You will pay for all of it. The transaction is the meal. What you actually eat in 1986, not at Lutèce, on the other 19 days of the month. Your lunch is a turkey club from a deli counter that smells of hot pastrami and something optimistically labelled fresh coffee. You have 12 minutes. You eat standing. The sandwich costs $4 and tastes better than the duck breast, a fact you will not admit out loud. The dinner for two, with wine at a top Manhattan restaurant, runs $200 to $300. That's today's $550 to $830, paid to be handed a plate the size of a saucer on which 6 things have been arranged to resemble modern art. The waiter explains the plate before you can touch it. He uses words like reduction and essence, and finished with. The dish is finished when you finish it, in 4 bites, and then you sit with your empty plate and maintain the expression of someone who is satisfied. A busboy named Marco, who has been refilling your water glass with the gravity of a man defusing a bomb, clears the plate without a word. He is working a second shift tonight. His commute home is 1 hour and 40 minutes. None of this is on the menu. Of course, the sun-dried tomatoes arrive at some point. They are on everything in 1986. On bruschetta. On pasta. On the inside of a warm goat cheese tart that the menu called something untranslatable. Sun-dried tomatoes in 1986 are what activated charcoal is to a later, equally confused generation. The precise detail that marks you as someone who has consulted the right magazines. You eat them. They taste like tomato that has been thinking very seriously about itself for several weeks. The arugula underneath the duck is also present, peppery, fashionable, and faintly resentful at being a garnish. Arugula in 1986 is not a salad green. It is a position statement. It is peppery and slightly bitter, and it says, without saying, I have been to Italy, or I have been to a restaurant that has been to Italy, which is close enough. You ate iceberg lettuce until 1983. You do not mention this. The Perrier comes in. It arrives before you've ordered anything else, sweating gently in a green bottle, looking extremely French about the whole arrangement. You didn't ask for it. The waiter brought it. The waiter will charge $7 for it. The Perrier has more confidence than everyone at the table, including the partner. The check, when it comes in a small leather folder. The leather folder is doing a lot of emotional work on behalf of the number inside it. You don't flinch. You are not supposed to flinch. You locate your American Express Gold card, not the green, the gold, and you set it on the folder with the practiced casualness of someone who has rehearsed this exact gesture in the bathroom mirror of a previous restaurant. The card lands flat. The waiter collects it. $312 disappears into the evening like it never existed. You split a cab with the partner on the way back uptown. Nobody speaks about the check. Nobody speaks about the food. The meal was not about the food. The meal was proof that you are someone who eats at places like this, which is a different thing entirely from being hungry. You leave Lutece at 11:42 p.m, and the senior partner says, the words you have come to recognize as a small professional summons. He says, 1 drink. You walk 3 blocks to a wine bar on 3rd Avenue that opened 18 months ago and serves California Chardonnay by the glass for $17. The clients order. The partner orders. You order. The first glass arrives. You will not be home before 1. The wine bar is small, expensive, and designed for exactly this, to extend the dinner with you in it until the deal is informally complete. The bar is called something like Vines, or Cellar, or Harvest. A single noun, lowercase on the awning, lit from inside with warm amber light that makes everyone look marginally more rested than they are. The bottles are displayed on a rack behind the bartender, each one angled forward at the exact same degree, which is a level of precision nobody asked for, but everyone accepts. There are small dishes of marinated olives on the table. Nobody touches them. The olives are decorative. They know this. Let's talk about California Chardonnay in 1986. It is oaky. Deeply, devotionally oaky, in the way that someone's lake house is aggressively decorated with nautical rope. You drink it because the partner drinks it because the clients drink it, and somewhere along the chain of ordering someone decided this was the correct wine for after 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and that decision is now load-bearing. The $17 glass does not taste $17 different from an $8 glass, but it is not ordered for taste. It is ordered so the number exists in the room. The client, his name is Randall, which he mentioned twice at dinner, and you stored carefully, has loosened his tie approximately 1 centimetre. This is a signal, not a warm signal, a transactional one. Randall loosens his tie when he has decided the evening is going his way, and if the evening is going his way, that is also your evening going your way, and your job right now is to not say anything that causes the tie to retighten. You hold your Chardonnay. You smile at a moderate angle. You are, functionally, furniture that can agree. The partner is telling a story about a closing dinner in 1979, where the opposing counsel spilled burgundy on a term sheet and had to retype it at midnight in a hotel business centre. This story has a structure. The structure is, things were harder before, and we survived them, and you will too. He tells it like it happened last week. Randall laughs. You laugh. The olives remain unmoved. The second glass appears. You did not order it. The bartender, a man in his 30s with the careful posture of someone who has learned to anticipate expensive silences, refilled your glass while you were watching Randall's tie. The glass is simply fuller now. The tab is simply larger now. This is how wine bars in 1986 Manhattan operate, like a meter running in a cab where nobody agreed on the destination. It's 12:20. You have a markup due at 8. The markup does not care about Randall or California Chardonnay, or the story about the burgundy-stained term sheet. The markup is sitting on your desk right now, dense with red-line comments, waiting in the fluorescent quiet of the 43rd floor with the patience of something that has nowhere else to be. You think about it briefly, and then stop, because thinking about it here is a form of leaving, and leaving is not an option while Randall's glace is still half full. Of course, there are people you could have called tonight. There is someone, specifically, who is either asleep by now or watching television in the dark in the apartment you share and have been meaning to talk about the apartment, the television, the dark. That conversation is also waiting. ARM. It has better patience than the markup. It has been waiting longer. You let yourself back into the firm at 12:18 a.m. with a magnetic key card that records the time, which means the time is now part of your record. The reception desk is dark. The cleaning crew is on the floor below. The lights in the bullpen come on automatically as you walk through the motion sensor. There are 3 associates already at their desks. None of you acknowledge each other. There is a brief that needs to be filed by 9 a.m. and you have not yet read the cases it is supposed to cite. The desk. It's not a desk. It's a surface covered in other people's emergencies. Urgent, overlapping, and undecipherable, arranged in a hierarchy only you understand, which means it looks like a landfill to everyone else, and a filing system to you. The yellow legal pads are from yesterday. The ones with the red margin lines are from the week before. Somewhere under the phone is a note you wrote to yourself that says call merger, you are gent, and the word urgent has been underlined twice, which you now cannot parse because everything is urgent and has been since August. The fluorescent lights hum at a frequency that isn't quite audible, but is definitely present. Not loud, not quiet, just aggressively there. Like a dental drill that hasn't decided what it wants yet. The toner smell from the Xerox machine on the far wall has been in your sinuses so long, you've stopped identifying it as a smell and started identifying it as air. You pour coffee from the pot that was made at 6 p.m. The coffee does not comment on what it has become. You drink it anyway. Across the bullpen, a second year named Derek is highlighting a document with the focused intensity of a man defusing a bomb. He's been here since 7 this morning. You know this because his jacket is on the back of his chair in the specific crumpled way that means he hasn't left to hang it up, which means he hasn't left at all. In 2, Derek is billing 2,200 hours a year and has developed a twitch in his left eye that he describes, when anyone asks, as allergies. Nobody asks anymore. The first-year associates at Cravath made $65,000 in 1986. A New York City public school teacher made $28,000. You are aware of this gap. In the abstract way you are aware of things that are true, but inconvenient to think about past midnight. The gap exists. The gap does not hand you a red line memo at 12:30 a.m. Your memo does. The case citation's live, in a stack of reporters that someone has arranged along the credenza with the particular hopefulness of a person who believed, at some earlier point in the evening, that organization would save them. You pull 3 volumes. 2 of the cases are distinguishable on their facts. One of them actively contradicts your argument. You set that one aside in the way you set aside anything that complicates a position you've already staked out in a document someone senior has already approved. The case sits there. It has a page number. You know the page number. You do not write the page number down. The case will not be cited. By 2 in the morning, the floor has 4 associates and a partner who arrives from somewhere smelling faintly of a dinner that costs more than your monthly student loan payment. He doesn't sit. He stands at the edge of the bullpen, reviews 2 pages, makes a mark in red pen, and disappears back toward his office without speaking. The red mark says, rethink. Rethink is not a direction. Rethink is a weather condition. You rethink. The cleaning crew finishes the floor below and moves up. A man named Victor runs a vacuum along the far wall with the diplomatic neutrality of someone who has learned not to make eye contact with people who are crying quietly at their keyboards, which is a thing that happens, occasionally, on this floor between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. without announcement or aftermath. Victor vacuums. You keep typing. Both of you have been here too long. Only one of you gets overtime. The brief will be filed. It will be filed on time. It will contain the relevant citations properly formatted with the right margins and the right font, and it will land on a judge's clerk's desk at 8:53 a.m., looking like something produced by people who slept. It was not produced by people who slept. It was produced by people who drank bad coffee under fluorescent lights, while a vacuum ran in the background and a partner made a mark that said rethink. The brief does not include a footnote explaining this. Briefs don't have that section. You step out of the lobby at 1:43 a.m. and the doorman of the firm, a different doorman than your apartment doorman, raises his hand and the cab arrives. You give the address. The cab moves up Park Avenue past the long, even rectangles of office lights still burning at this hour. You count them as a private habit. You watch the meter. The firm reimburses any cab past 9 p.m. This ride costs you nothing on paper. The driver has the radio on low, distant, impersonal and barely listened to. Some AM station doing overnight news. You catch fragments, a bond yield, a weather advisory, something about the Mets. None of it requires a response, which is good, because your capacity for response ended somewhere around hour 14. You've been awake since 6:15, which means you are now 19 hours into being a person, and the results are showing. Your right hand has a small ink stain near the thumb that you didn't notice until the cab's dome light caught it. You study it the way you'd study a bruise on someone else. The meter clicks. It's a sound that has a very specific relationship with your income at this hour. Technically, 0 cost to you, technically $6 and counting. And the 2 facts exist in your brain at the same time without resolving. The firm's reimbursement policy is generous in the way that a life vest is generous. Useful, present, and not the point. Let's talk about the city outside the window. At 1:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, Midtown drops its performance. The restaurants are closed, or closing. The Perrier is off the table. The sun-dried tomatoes have been cleared away, and the tables reset for tomorrow's lunch, when someone else will order something with arugula to signal that they know what arugula is. Out here, a man in a down coat is pushing a cart with 2 garbage bags on it, moving north, moving steadily, not looking at the cab. You look at him for exactly 1 block before the light changes. Midtown at this hour is basically 2 cities running parallel and never quite touching. You are in one, he is in the other. Your apartment is 11 blocks away. You know this ride costs the firm maybe $8. You also know that at Cravath this year, a first-year associate earns $65,000, which sounds considerable until you divide it by the hours. A public school teacher on the same street earns $28,000 and goes home at a time that would strike you as frankly theoretical. You have stopped doing this math. The math does not improve with repetition. Marcos, the overnight doorman at your building, buzzes you in before you've reached for your key. He does this every time. He has developed, through sheer accumulated evidence, a precise sense of when you'll appear, the 10 p.m. Return, the midnight return, the 1:43 a.m. Return, that means the brief went long. He doesn't comment. He hands you your mail, which arrived 16 hours ago, and which you will read tomorrow or possibly Thursday. He says good night, in a tone that contains neither judgment nor irony, which makes it the kindest thing anyone has said to you today. Your apartment costs you $2,100 a month, which is 30% above what it cost the previous tenant 2 years ago, and that tenant left because the building went co-op and the board required financials and references and a personal interview, which is basically a Soho House membership committee, except they can also reject you for your grandmother's profession. You passed. You are here. The apartment is dark, and exactly as you left it at 7 this morning, which means the coffee cup is still on the counter and will be there when you wake up in 4.5 hours. The bedroom is quiet. The suit goes on the chair. There is a dry cleaning bag on the doorknob from last Wednesday that you keep meaning to deal with. You set your watch, the date just, which keeps time with a fidelity you find personally insulting, for 6:15. You will get up. You will get on a cab that the firm will not reimburse because it goes the other direction. You will walk into the building and the morning doorman, not the night doorman, will hold the door. The meter, back in the cab now, somewhere behind you, has stopped. You walk into your lobby at 2:01 a.m. The night doorman, who has been here since 11, looks up from a copy of the Daily News and gives a small nod. He has watched you come home at this hour for 14 consecutive work days. He knows the time. The logbook at his elbow knows the time. The building knows the time. The building, in fact, has a quiet collective record of what hour you arrive home, who comes with you, and how often. And that record will be relevant the next time the co-op board has questions. Let's talk about the co-op board. Pood. It meets quarterly in the 4th floor common room, around a mahogany table that belongs to no one in particular, and everyone in general. The board has 5 members, a retired appellate judge, a woman whose family has owned the corner unit since 1962, a portfolio manager who smells permanently of bay rum, a dentist who ran unopposed 3 elections in a row, and a woman named Patricia who introduced herself once as a former Vogue features editor and has not mentioned anything else since. They are not elected by merit. They are elected by tenure and proximity and the low-grade social terror of disagreeing with Patricia. You bought your apartment last year, 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, north-facing windows, for $385,000. The board approved you after a 40-minute interview that felt structured like a first date and a job performance review happening simultaneously. They asked about your employer, your bonus structure, your parents' occupations, and whether you plan to have a piano. You said no to the piano. You were approved. The couple on the 8th floor, a radiologist and a litigation attorney, combined income north of $200,000, were rejected 3 months earlier for reasons the board is not required to disclose. They'd moved from Chicago. The board has opinions about Chicago. A co-op board in a good Manhattan building in 1986 is basically a Soho House membership committee, except they can reject you for your last name, your accent, or a feeling one of them got during the handshake, and they don't have to write it down. The radiologist hired a lawyer. The lawyer sent a letter. The board held another meeting and concluded, in a single paragraph, that the decision stood. The paragraph contained the phrase community character. The paragraph contained nothing else of substance. Marcus, the night doorman, not the evening doorman, different person, different temperament, sets your mail on the side table by the elevator without looking at it. He's been on this shift for 6 years. He knows which residents tip at Christmas, which ones pretend not to see him when they're in a hurry, and which packages to leave outside the door versus which ones to sign for and hold. He keeps this information the way a card counter keeps track of the deck, quietly, accurately, without being asked. He holds the elevator door with one hand, not pressing it, just holding the rubber edge, giving you a full 3 seconds more than you needed. It's the specific, small grace of someone who understands exactly how tired you are, without requiring an explanation. You ride up in silence. The elevator has a mirror. You don't look at it. The dry cleaning bag is still on the doorknob where you left it this morning. The suit inside has been cleaned, pressed, and is ready for 8 a.m. The suit is prepared. You are less prepared. You set the alarm for 6:15, which gives you 4 hours and 11 minutes, which is technically enough sleep to function if your definition of function is generous and your blood pressure is someone else's problem. The building settles around you, quiet, slow, and indifferent. 3 floors up, someone has insomnia and is watching television. The faint, low flicker of it comes through the ceiling in a way that would be annoying if you were going to be awake long enough to find it annoying. Down the hall, the Bergman's baby is not crying, which means it is either asleep or the Bergmans have finally gotten good at the white noise machine. Either way, you're not thinking about the Bergmans. You're thinking about the 7 a.m. call you have to make to Tokyo, about the draft you left open on your desk at the office, about the fact that you had a full thought earlier today, around 4 in the afternoon, and then someone asked you a question, and the thought is gone. You don't know what it was. It might have been important. It's just absent now, like a word on the tip of your tongue, except the word has been gone for 6 hours and probably isn't coming back. You wake at 10:40 a.m. on Saturday with the specific dehydration that follows a Friday that ended at 3 a.m. Cheerydale Aim. The brunch reservation is at noon at a place on Lexington that has eggs, Benedict and Bloody Marys, and a 1-hour wait nobody is willing to admit they planned around. Your spouse is already showered. Your spouse has made the reservation. Your spouse has invited 2 other couples. You have 90 minutes to construct a version of yourself that the 4 people at the table will recognize as the man they thought they were having brunch with. The shower helps. The shower does not fully help. You stand under it for 11 minutes and emerge with approximately 60% of a personality. The other 40% requires coffee, which requires going outside, which requires getting dressed first, which is its own problem because the dry cleaning still isn't back, and the good blazer is somewhere in a heap that has started developing its own internal weather system. Let's talk about what you wear, not the blazer, the backup blazer. The one with the shoulder pads that are maybe slightly too aggressive for a Saturday but communicate, at minimum, that you are a person with a blazer. You pair it with chinos. The chinos are fine. Everything is fine. You check the watch, the Rolex Datejust, which you paid $2,200 for in 1985, and which your college roommate described, without being asked, as a statement, and the watch says 11:17. You have 43 minutes. The couple you're meeting are Tom and Janet from the floor above, plus someone named Carter and his girlfriend whose name you've already lost. Tom is at Merrill Lynch. Carter is in real estate, which means something different in 1986 than it did in 1976. It means Carter has opinions about per square foot values, the way other people have opinions about their children. Janet arrives carrying a tote bag that costs more than a public school teacher's weekly paycheck and sets it down with the practiced casualness of someone who knows exactly what it costs. The restaurant is narrow and warm and smells like hollandaise and other people's optimism. Your Bloody Mary arrives with a celery stalk standing in it, at an angle that suggests the celery has also made a reservation. You order. Tom orders. Carter orders something with arugula, peppery, fashionable, and faintly aspirational, which in 1986 is still the kind of ingredient that signals you've recently been to a restaurant that doesn't have photographs on the menu. The conversation does what Saturday brunch conversation does. It circles the week without landing on any of it. Nobody says I slept 4 hours Thursday. Nobody says I cried in the car on Tuesday, for reasons I haven't fully identified. Tom mentions the market, and everybody nods and there's a pause that means everyone is thinking about the market. And then someone asks about a restaurant that opened in Tribeca, and the pause closes over like water. The Saturday is work. Different work. The work of appearing to have successfully separated from the work. You are performing leisure at a professional level, which requires the same sustained attention as the week itself, just with better lighting and a garnish. Carter says something about square footage. His girlfriend, her name is Stephanie, you remember now Stephanie, is telling your spouse about a co-op on Park that just listed, which prompts a look from your spouse, which prompts a response look from you, which contains approximately 14 sentences that neither of you says out loud. The eggs arrive. They're good. You're hungry in a way that suggests your body has been operating on caffeine and atmosphere since Wednesday. You eat with more focus than the table requires, and for about 4 minutes the whole performance pauses while everyone is just eating. It's the most honest 4 minutes of the meal. The bill comes. It's $190 for 4 people, including tip, which is, by the standards of a top table on the Upper East Side, on a Saturday in 1986, quite reasonable, which is a sentence that would require significant unpacking in most other decades. Tom reaches for it. You reach for it. There's the brief ritual combat of 2 men who both intend to lose. Tom wins, which means Tom loses, which means you owe Tom a dinner that will cost more. At a place where the menu doesn't have prices on the side you receive it. You stand on Lexington, in the November air, and the 4 of them are talking and you're nodding and your shoes are too cold, and somewhere in the week behind you is the thought you lost around 4 p.m. On Thursday, still not recovered. The Rolex says 1:48. You have a conference call at 8 a.m. Sunday that nobody has officially confirmed, but everyone knows is happening. Stephanie says something about a wine bar that just opened. Everyone agrees this sounds good. You're already calculating the sleep. You walk to the parking garage on East 81st Street at 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. The attendant brings down your 1986 BMW 325i, dark blue manual transmission, 28,000 miles. You pay $420 a month to keep it in this garage. You drive it, on average, twice. You are not going to use it today either. You came to verify that it is here. The verification is the reason you keep it. You hand the keys back. The attendant does not comment. The car returns to its slot. The car is not transportation. It's not transportation. It's a $25,000 object that confirms you made the right decisions in your 20s, which is basically the Stanley Cup of 1986. Except it sits in a garage on East 81st and costs you more per month than some people's rent in Queens. The manual transmission matters. You specified manual at the dealership, while the salesman wrote it down without looking up, which told you he'd heard this before. You drive it in first gear through a parking structure and call that driving. The 325i has 37,000 actual miles of highway capability it has never been asked to use. On the 2 Saturdays a month you do take it out, you drive to Connecticut and back, or to a brunch in Hoboken you could have taken a cab to for $11. The car sits in third gear behind a crosstown bus for 40 minutes. You downshift for a yellow light with a precision that nobody witnesses. The car is very good at this. It has opinions about roads it will never see. Marco, the weekday attendant, knows your name. Not your first name, your last name, the way a maitre d' uses it. He says it when he brings the car down, and when he takes it back. And both times it sounds like a small professional acknowledgement that you have made it to a tier of person who is acknowledged. You don't tip him per visit. You tip him at Christmas in a sealed envelope with your last name on the outside, which Marco sets beside the booth without opening it while you watch. The envelope sits there. You've already left. The $420 monthly garage fee works out to $210 per drive. The cab to your office is $14. You are aware of this math. You did it once on a legal pad at your desk, circled the number, looked at it for a moment, and then turned the legal pad face down and ordered a Perrier. The math isn't the point. The math is specifically not the point, and understanding that it isn't the point is part of what the car costs. The Rolex is doing the same thing on your wrist, by the way. So is the Hermes tie hanging in your closet that you wear to client dinners and once left on an Amtrak to Philadelphia? You replaced it the same week, not because you needed a tie, because the specific tie, the specific pattern, the specific weight of it across your collar at a partner's meeting. That's the verification. Different object. Same garage. You stand on East 81st for a moment after handing the keys back. The garage door lowers. It's 11:44 a.m. You have nowhere specific to be until Tom's call tomorrow at 8, and the 14 blocks between here and your apartment stretch ahead empty, vast, and yours. You'll walk back. You'll stop at the deli and Lex that smells of pastrami and newsprint, buy a coffee you don't need in a paper cup, and hold it with both hands like it's the thing you came out for. It is, a little. You sit across from opposing counsel at 9 a.m. on Monday, and you adjust your left cuff once before you begin to speak. The adjustment exposes the watch. The watch is a Rolex Datejust in stainless steel and yellow gold, with a fluted bezel and a Jubilee bracelet, purchased 18 months ago for $3,200. Opposing counsel notices it the way one is supposed to notice it, peripherally, briefly, without comment. The cuff settles back. The negotiation begins. The watch has done its small structural work in the room before either of you has named a number. The watch is not for telling time. It is not for telling time. You have a clock on the wall, a clock on the phone console, and a paralegal named Diane who will appear in the doorway at 10:45 to tell you the conference call has been pushed. The watch is not a timepiece. It is a credential, same as the degree on the wall, same as the business card, same as the measured pause you've learned to insert before you answer a question you already know the answer to. Opposing counsel across the table is wearing a Submariner, black dial, no date window, oyster bracelet, scratched on the left lug from what is probably a squash court or a ski trip. You clock this in the same 3 seconds he clocked yours. Neither of you says anything. The entire conversation has already happened. The meeting is the formal version of the conversation, with billing codes attached. Opposing counsel makes his first offer 30 seconds later than he would have made it without the watch on the table. You make your counter 20 seconds later than you would have. Both of you know this. Neither of you mentions it. The watch is doing the talking. Neither of you would commit to in writing. A senior partner named Gerald Stanton wears a Rolex day date in 18-karat yellow gold with a champagne dial, which retails for considerably more than your Datejust, and he wears it in a way that suggests he has never once thought about the watch, which is the final achievement. Gerald doesn't adjust his cuff. Gerald doesn't need to. Gerald's watch has graduated beyond signalling into simple fact, the way a corner office eventually stops being a statement and starts being a room. You are not Gerald. You are 31, and you are still at the adjustment stage, which means the watch is still working. It works in conference rooms, and it works in restaurants, and it works in the elevator at 7:15 a.m. when you ride up with someone from M&A who glances at your wrist and recalibrates the greeting accordingly. You have noticed this. You are not proud of noticing this. You have noticed it anyway. The Datejust costs $3,200, which is roughly what a New York City public school teacher takes home in 6 weeks. You did not think about that when you bought it. You think about it now, briefly, in the way you think about a lot of things briefly. In the elevator. In the cab. Between the second and third page of a deposition. And then the thought goes where those thoughts go, which is somewhere without a forwarding address. The watch keeps running through the meeting, through lunch at your desk, through the 4 p.m. call that goes until 6:15, through the car home. It doesn't know any of this. It knows seconds. It is extremely good at seconds. You, by contrast, have lost track of the week entirely, but the watch looks confident, and in this room, that counts for something. You sit down on a leather couch at 6:30 p.m. on a Tuesday at a brownstone on West 72nd Street. The therapist is a Columbia-trained psychiatrist named Dr. Rosen. The session costs $140, and the firm's insurance covers approximately none of it. Dr. Rosen takes notes in a leather binder. You report sleep, 5 hours, broken, appetite, variable, and what you describe as occasional difficulty concentrating in the late afternoon. You do not mention cocaine. Dr. Rosen does not ask. The appointment ends at 7:20 with a prescription for Xanax. Let's talk about the Xanax. It comes in a small orange cylinder from a pharmacy on Madison Avenue that also sells Perrier and hand cream for $22. You take 0.5 milligram before sleep, which does not produce sleep so much as it produces a convincing impression of someone who has stopped caring about not sleeping. In the morning you take the other half with coffee. The coffee cancels the Xanax. The Xanax softens the coffee. They reach a truce somewhere around the M86 bus stop, and you arrive at the office in a state that technically qualifies as functional. Dr. Rosen's office has a white noise machine outside the door and a framed Matisse print inside it. The chairs are leather, deep, and arranged at the angle that means listening, not a poster, a print. The frame is museum quality, which you notice because noticing this kind of thing is now automatic, the way other people notice the weather. His bookshelf holds the DSM-3, a copy of Kohut's collected essays, and a small stone Buddha that manages to look both serene and vaguely judgmental. You are paying $140 to sit across from a judgmental stone Buddha and explain your sleep hygiene. The things you say in these sessions are true. They are simply not complete. You mention the hours. 80 last week, you think, though you stopped counting around Wednesday. You mention the associate review coming in March, and the partner who KCD the entire floor on your memo revision, and the sensation you've been having in your right wrist that the internet would eventually call carpal tunnel, but that you are currently calling nothing, because naming it would require seeing a doctor, and seeing a doctor would require scheduling an appointment, and your calendar has 23 items on it before noon. A man named Richard Sato sits 2 sessions ahead of you on Tuesday evenings. You know this because you've seen him leave. Same building, same elevator, always the coat from Paul Stewart, always looking at his watch the moment he clears the door. Richard is, you've decided, a tax attorney. He has the posture of someone who's been told to relax so many times that relaxing has itself become a source of stress. You recognize this because you share it. 4. The math of the whole arrangement is suspect. You work 80 hours a week at a pace that requires pharmaceutical assistance to sustain. You spend $140 a week to report the consequences to Dr. Rosen in a room with soft lighting and a stone Buddha. The stone Buddha doesn't bill by the hour, which is honestly its greatest advantage over everyone else in your life. Dr. Rosen renews the Xanax. You return to work. The 80 hours do not adjust. The session on the 3rd Tuesday of December, Dr. Rosen asks how you're feeling about the holidays. You say fine. He writes something. You watch his pen and think about a brief due January 3rd. He asks if you've been taking time for yourself. You say yes, which is accurate if you count the cab ride uptown as personal time, and at this point you do. The session ends. The white noise machine does the rest. You leave the brownstone at 7:22 and hail a cab back downtown. The city is lit up and moving fast, and smells like exhaust and pretzel carts, and something burning from a vent somewhere near Columbus Avenue. You think about the brief. You think about your wrist. You think about the prescription folded in your coat pocket, which is doing no work yet, but is comforting in the way a parachute is comforting. Mostly you don't want to need it, but you're glad it's there. The cab hits a pothole on 65th. Your wrist objects. You'll book the same slot next Tuesday. Dr. Rosen will have the binder. The white noise machine will stand watch at the door, keeping your particular silence safely separated from everyone else's. You arrive at the gym on East 86th Street at 5:55 a.m. on Saturday because that is when the trainer named Jeff has an open hour. Jeff is 26 and a former college rower and charges $75 an hour cash. The session is 45 minutes of high-intensity intervals on a stationary bike, followed by 15 minutes of free weights. You do not enjoy any of it. You attend it 3 Saturdays out of 4. The attendance is the point. You are buying an hour in which the cocaine and the wine and the desk hours are forced, briefly, to the surface and out through the skin. Jeff has a clipboard. The clipboard has your resting heart rate from 3 weeks ago written on it in blue ballpoint, and Jeff references it with the gravity of a man reviewing surgical notes. He doesn't ask how your week went. He asks how your sleep was. You say fine. He writes something down. This is the only hour of the week in which someone records your physical condition without also sending you a bill afterward. The stationary bike faces a mirror. The mirror shows you a person in a $90 pair of Reebok high tops and a Princeton intramural rowing shirt from 1979 that you keep for exactly this purpose. The shirt is loose, faded, and doing its best. The shirt remembers a version of you that could run a 6:30 mile without pharmaceutical assistance. You don't tell the shirt what year it is now. It wouldn't help. Let's talk about who else is here. There's a man on the treadmill in a Goldman Sachs 5K shirt who got here before you and will still be here when you leave, running at a pace that suggests he's being chased by something specific. There's a woman doing lat pull-downs with the focused expression of someone mentally composing a client memo. A trainer named Christine is adjusting someone's squat form with the precision of a field medic who's seen this exact injury before and is preventing it, barely, again. Nobody is talking. The gym at 6 a.m. on a Saturday is the world's most expensive collective silent agreement to not discuss the week. The intervals end. Jeff hands you a towel and says you've improved your peak output by 4 watts. 4 watts? The Dow moved 508 points in a single afternoon in October, and you are celebrating 4 watts. You take the towel. You say thank you. The free weights smell like iron and someone else's ambition. You do 3 sets of curls while Jeff counts aloud and offers small corrections. Elbow in, wrist neutral, breathe out on the lift, with the calm of a man who has never once had to explain a quarter's performance to a room full of people in dark suits. Jeff sleeps 8 hours a night. You can tell it's visible on him, like a tan. The math stops making sense in an interesting way. The session costs $75 cash. The cab to get here cost $8. The gym membership itself runs $1,800 a year, which comes to $150 a month, which you wrote a check for without looking at the amount. The Reebok high tops were $90. The protein shake Jeff recommends, a powder that comes in a tub the size of a paint bucket and tastes like a chocolate bar that's been briefed on nutrition, costs $35. You are spending approximately $130 this morning to partially undo the damage of spending $280 on dinner Thursday, $40 on drinks at Nell's, and an amount you're not calculating on the other thing. The math doesn't close. The math has never closed. You do the session anyway because the session is the only part of the week that feels like evidence you are still trying. Jeff writes, your 4-watt improvement on the clipboard. He says, see you next Saturday. You say, yeah, definitely, see you next Saturday. You will make it 3 Saturdays out of 4. Jeff knows this. He writes it down. You sit at your desk in late February and book 2 weeks at a hotel on the Caribbean island of Mustique for the second half of August. The travel agent on Madison Avenue confirms the dates by fax. The deposit is $2,600 and is non-refundable after April 1. In April, the deal closes. In May, the next deal opens. In June, the partner asks if you can be available the second week of August for a pitch in Houston. In July, you cancel everything except the deposit. The hotel keeps the money. The hotel is used to it. This is not a failure of planning. Son, your planning is immaculate. You have a calendar on the wall, a day timer on your desk, and a second backup day timer in your briefcase in case the first one develops opinions. The vacation was real when you booked it. The fax confirmation is filed in a green folder labeled Personal, 1987, along with your gym membership receipt and a dentist appointment you've rescheduled 4 times since March. The folder exists. The intentions inside it are sincere. The August dates just stopped being real, sometime around June, the way ice stops being ice when you leave it near something warm. The folder remembers. Nobody else does. What you do instead of Mustique. You work. Specifically, you work 83 hours in the first week of August, eat Tuesday's lunch at your desk from a deli bag that smells of pastrami and a decision you didn't fully think through, and attend a dinner in Houston on Thursday night that costs $240 for 3 people, goes on the corporate card, and involves no one you'll remember in 2 years. Houston in August has a specific quality. It's the inside of someone's mouth after they've been talking for 6 hours. You fly home Sunday morning and are back at your desk by 2. Your assistant Dana adjusts the calendar quietly, completely, and without comment. She moves the green Personal 1987 folder to the bottom drawer without saying anything about it. Dana is very good. She's been here 4 years. She makes $28,000, which is $11,000 less than what you spent on your car, and $7,000 less than what a first-year associate at Cravath made last year. Dana has also never asked about Mustique, which is a professional courtesy you've both chosen not to examine too closely. Of course, you tell yourself you'll reschedule. Everyone reschedules. There's a version of this story where October opens up, or Christmas, or next February before things get busy again. This version of the story is popular. It circulates at dinner parties and on squash courts and in the elevator at 7:45 a.m. When someone asks how you're doing and you say crazy busy in a tone that means fine or means drowning, and nobody pauses long enough to tell the difference. Crazy busy is the phrase that means everything and nothing simultaneously. It is the most used 2-word sequence in Manhattan in 1987 after Hold Please. Somewhere in the Caribbean, Mustique continues without you. The hotel has your $2,600. It has a pool. The pool has water in it. Someone else is lying next to that pool right now. Someone who either works fewer hours than you or works the same hours and simply has better collapse management, or is also a lawyer but somehow drew the shorter deal and got August clear and is now horizontal in direct sunlight, which is a posture you cannot currently physically achieve because your shoulders don't go that way anymore. Jeff mentioned this on Saturday. He used the word adaptive shortening. He had a clipboard when he said it. You sit at the kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon interviewing a woman named Yolanda, who has been recommended by your spouse's college friend. Yolanda is 41, from Trinidad, has cared for 2 other Upper East Side children, and is asking for $380 a week for 50 hours of childcare and light housekeeping. The arithmetic is roughly $20,000 a year before tax. You will pay her in cash. She will not be on payroll. The arrangement is illegal in 3 different specific ways, and is the arrangement that everyone in this building has. Yolanda has brought a folder. Inside the folder are 2 handwritten reference letters and a photograph, careful, precise, and quietly organized, of a child she cared for between 1983 and 1986, a boy named Bryce who is wearing a sweater that costs more than her weekly rate. She sets the folder on the table between the two of you and folds her hands on top of it. You notice the folder before you notice her hands. This is not your best moment. The interview lasts 40 minutes. You ask about her experience with sleep schedules and food allergies. You do not ask about her commute, which is 90 minutes each way on the 4 train from the Bronx. She does not volunteer it. The folder waits. Nobody mentions the commute. The math is doing something interesting. You're billing at a rate that works out to roughly $400 an hour. Yolanda is asking for $760. The gap is not something either of you will name out loud, because naming it would require acknowledging what the interview actually is, and the interview, officially, is a professional exchange between two parties evaluating mutual fit. The table is marble. You had it installed in 1985. The solution is Yolanda. The solution to Yolanda is cash in an envelope on Friday afternoons, left on the kitchen counter beside the good olive oil, which she is welcome to use, and which she uses sparingly because she has read the label. Yolanda takes the job. She starts Monday. She arrives at 7:15 with a canvas bag containing lunch she has made herself, a small lined notebook with a purple cover, and, this you notice later, finding it tucked neatly beside the radiator, a worn copy of a childcare manual from 1979 with her notes in the margins. The notes are in pencil. They are precise. She has been doing this longer than you have been a lawyer. By 9 a.m., Yolanda has fed your daughter, changed her, noted the rash on her left wrist that you had not noticed, and begun a small log in the purple notebook. Time up, temperature, mood, what she ate, what she refused. The notebook is more detailed than your billing records. It is considerably more honest. Your daughter reaches for Yolanda's collar with both hands, the way she does when she's decided someone is safe. It takes her 3 days to do this with people she loves. It has taken her 45 minutes with Yolanda. This is the part nobody photographs for the magazine spread. The spread gets the co-op, the marble table, the crate and barrel pendant light, the two of you in weekend clothes looking competent and at ease. Yolanda is on the 4 train home by 7:30 p.m. The purple notebook in her bag, the week's cash in an envelope, 90 minutes between her and the Bronx. She'll be back at 7:15. The table will be exactly as she left it. You and your spouse arrive home from a dinner party at 10:48 p.m. On Friday, the babysitter is paid and sent home in the elevator. The kitchen has a small disaster in it. Patient, predictable, and carefully unattended, that the babysitter did not see. There are dishes. There is a load of laundry that has been in the dryer since this morning. There is a child's lunch that has to be packed for tomorrow's day camp. By an arrangement nobody negotiated and nobody acknowledges, your spouse begins the kitchen and you sit down with the briefcase. This is the second shift, and it has begun. The briefcase has a memo in it that should have been read before the dinner party. You read it now, in your blazer, with your earrings still on, and your shoes still on, and a glass of the wine you probably shouldn't have poured sitting at your elbow. The memo has 12 pages. You have notes on the memo. The notes are in your handwriting from a meeting 3 weeks ago, and you cannot tell what half of them mean. You turn to page 4. You turn back to page 2. Meanwhile, your spouse has found the dish situation more complex than expected. There is a pot with something dried in it that will require soaking, and a philosophical decision about whether soaking counts as handling it. The laundry gets folded on the kitchen table with the focus of someone diffusing something. By 11:30, the kitchen is approximately recovered. Your spouse comes to stand in the doorway, and you both look at each other across the living room with the specific expression of two people who have run a very long race and have just been told there are 2 more miles. The lunch. The lunch for day camp requires a sandwich, a piece of fruit, a snack, and something to drink, none of which are in the correct form. The bread is there. The deli meat is technically there, but has been in the refrigerator for 5 days, and you hold it to the light. the way a sommelier holds a wine glass, making a quiet judgment. You pack the lunch. The lunch container has a latch that doesn't close all the way and hasn't for 3 weeks, and this has never been fixed because fixing it requires going to a store during store hours, which is a time zone you do not currently occupy. Ali Hochschild published a study in 1989 that found professional women in 2-income households did 15 more hours of housework per week than their male partners. The study called it the second shift. Nobody at the firm mentions it. The firm does not have opinions about your second shift. The firm has opinions about your billable hours, and those opinions are many and well developed and delivered in writing. Your spouse has gone to bed. It's 12:20. The memo is on page 9. You have kicked off one shoe. Sally. The wine glass is empty, and you don't remember finishing it. There is a version of your life in a magazine from 3 years ago where you are holding a briefcase and smiling on a city sidewalk, your blazer immaculate, your posture suggesting a person who is extremely in control of all available variables. That photograph was taken at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. It took 40 minutes. You don't own that blazer anymore. One of the shoulder pads delaminated. The memo ends. You close the briefcase. You check the lunch container latch one more time, pressing it with your thumb until it clicks into a position that might hold. It probably won't hold. You know this. You leave the kitchen light on by accident, which you will remember at 3 a.m, and then not fix, and it will still be on in the morning. You climb the stairs. The house is quiet. The second shift is over for tonight, which means it has about 7 hours before it starts again. You sit at your desk on Wednesday morning and read a memo a junior associate 2 years behind you has placed in your inter-office envelope. The memo describes, in 3 short paragraphs, an incident at last weekend's firm retreat involving a senior partner, a hotel hallway, and an invitation she declined. She is asking for advice. The memo is unsigned. The memo is not a complaint. It cannot be a complaint, because the firm's official harassment policy was drafted in 1984 and has been used, to anyone's knowledge, exactly 0 times. The policy exists. It lives in a 3-ling binder on a shelf in HR, filed, ignored and nearby, behind a door that is almost always closed, next to a ficus that is almost always dead. The binder has a table of contents. Page 1 defines the relevant terms. Page 2 describes the complaint procedure. Page 3 is where the procedure quietly stops making sense, because the complaint goes to the managing partner's office, and the managing partner is the senior partner's college roommate from 1967. The binder has not been opened since Reagan's first term. The ficus has opinions about this, but the ficus keeps them to itself. You've been here 4 years. You know how this works without anyone explaining it. You know it the way you know not to park in the spot nearest the elevator. Nobody told you not to, but someone's things are always already there. The complaint, if filed, would be reviewed. The review would be thorough. The thoroughness would be exhausting and visible and professionally expensive in ways that would attach entirely to her, not to the hallway and not to the invitation. The math of it. She's a third-year associate making $72,000 a year and billing 2,100 hours. He's a named partner whose clients generate $4 million annually for the firm. The arithmetic isn't subtle. It isn't hidden. It's just there, the way the ficus is there. Present. Slightly unfortunate. Not going anywhere. So the memo sits on your desk, and you read it twice, and you think about what you know and what you can say, and what gap exists between those 2 things. The gap is significant. You have a yellow legal pad. You write 2 sentences, cross them out, write 1 more, and stop. A paralegal named Donna passes your open door carrying a stack of deposition transcripts thick enough to stop a door, and she glances in the way people glance when they already know something's wrong. She doesn't stop. The transcripts keep moving. What you know is this. The woman who wrote the memo will probably leave. Not today. not because of a dramatic confrontation. She'll leave in about 8 months, when a smaller firm in a different city calls with a slightly lower salary, and an office with a window and a harassment policy that has been used at least once, provably in living memory. You know this because you've watched it happen twice already, with different names and different hotel hallways, and the same threeling binder on the same shelf. You write her a note. It's careful. It's kind in the way that careful things are kind, which is to say, not very. You suggest she document everything, keep copies, stay professional. You do not suggest she file. The note takes 20 minutes to write and says almost nothing. You fold it, put it in a manila envelope and drop it in the interoffice mail, and your hand is perfectly steady when you do it, which is its own kind of answer. You notice on a Thursday in March that David, a senior associate 2 offices down, has not been at his desk all week, quietly, completely, and without notice. The first day, his secretary said he was at a deposition. The second day, she said he was working from home. The third day, she did not say anything. The fourth day, she has been moved to a different desk. You ask the partner you share with him about the case David was running. The partner says, without looking up, that the case has been reassigned and you should not call David at home. You don't call David at home. This is how it works in 1987. There is no announcement. There is no memo. There is no all hands where someone with a clipboard explains what is happening and what it means. David was at his desk, and then he wasn't, and the space his absence leaves is filled by a very specific kind of office silence, the kind where everyone already knows, and nobody is going to say it first. His coffee mug is still on the credenza. A secretary named Brenda slides past his door every morning without looking in. The mug is still there a week later. It has, in its quiet way, become a memorial. Let's talk about what you know without knowing it. By 1987, AIDS is the leading cause of death for men aged 25 to 44 in New York City. The statistic sits in a report that nobody at your firm has read because the firm does not send memos about public health statistics. What the firm sends memos about: billing requirements, parking validation, the new policy on client reimbursement for meals over $50. David is not in any of those memos. David is nowhere. Robert, the paralegal who shares a wall with David's office, adjusts his tie every time someone brings it up, a small, repeated gesture, like he's checking that everything is still attached. He doesn't say David's name. He says the Hartwell matter and the files on the third shelf and refers to all of it in the past tense, which is the grammatical form the office has collectively chosen for this situation. The past tense is the kindest thing the office knows how to do. Of course, there's a version of this you've watched before. Rock Hudson died in October 1985. That was in the news. That was discussed briefly in the way that celebrity deaths are discussed as something that happened to someone elsewhere in a different category of existence. What is happening to David is not in the news. It is in the walk from the elevator to your office every morning, in the particular quality of the closed door, in the fact that his name has stopped appearing on the routing slips. The firm does not have a policy for this. The firm has a policy for maternity leave, for short-term disability, for bereavement leave up to 3 days for an immediate family member. The definition of immediate family member does not stretch as far as you might hope. It does not stretch at all, actually. Anymore.
Some. Hi.
It is a fixed, specific, legally cautious list, and it ends where it ends. ACT UP was founded in March 1987. There are people in the streets. There are protests outside federal buildings, outside pharmaceutical companies, outside places where decisions get made. You know this because you walked past a demonstration one Tuesday, and a man in a grey coat hands you a pamphlet that you fold into your jacket pocket and do not read on the subway and throw away at the office before anyone sees it. You throw it away because you don't know what to do with it. This is the most honest thing about your week. David's mug disappears eventually. Someone took it, or Brenda moved it, or it was simply absorbed into the general entropy of a floor that processes and discards things with great efficiency. By April, there is a first-year associate at his desk running a different case for a different partner. She has already logged 62 hours this week. She has not asked about the mug. She doesn't know there was a mug. She knows only the Hartwell files are on the third shelf, and that she should not touch them without authorization, and that the case is closed. You walk south on Lexington at 7:42 a.m. on a Wednesday in February, at the corner of 53rd Street, on a subway grate that vents heat from the platform below. There is a man asleep under 3 coats and a section of the New York Times. You step around him. You do not break stride. You have walked past him 43 times this winter, by your own quiet count. The first time you saw him, you stopped. The second time you slowed. The 43rd time you do what everyone on this block does, which is keep walking. This is not indifference. Exactly. That's what you tell yourself. It's something more architectural. A reflex the city installs in you around week 3, right after the subway smell stops registering, and right before you stop looking both ways. The man on the grate is part of the streetscape now, permanent, familiar, and mute, like the scaffolding on 54th that's been there since 1984 and shows no signs of philosophical resolution. Manhattan median rents in prime neighborhoods rose over 50% in real terms between 1980 and 1987. Shelter populations in New York City tripled between 1980 and 1986. The two facts occupy the same block, sometimes the same corner, sometimes the same grate. Harold, the man at the corner of 53rd, has been on this particular grate since October. You know this because the dry cleaner 2 doors down, Mrs. Pack, mentioned it once in November while handing back your suits in their cellophane. She said his name. You didn't ask how she knew it. She had probably asked. That's the difference between you and Mrs. Pack. And you feel it briefly every time you collect a suit. The Reagan administration cut federal funding for low-income housing by nearly 75% between 1978 and 1983. You were in college in 1978. By 1986, an estimated 250,000 people were homeless in New York City on any given night, occupying a city where your one-bedroom in Murray Hill costs $1,900 a month, and your firm pays for your car service home after midnight. The city contains all of this simultaneously, without apology, without a seam. Nina, a paralegal at your firm who grew up in the Bronx, once said in the elevator that the word for what this is displacement. She said it flat, the way you'd say Tuesday, and then the elevator opened, and she got out. You thought about what she said for 45 seconds. Then a client called, and you thought about something else. You walk past Harold. The cold weighs almost nothing. You sit in a wood-panelled boardroom at 960 Fifth Avenue at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday in front of 7 members of the co-op board. The financial disclosure they have asked for runs to 14 pages and includes your last 3 years of tax returns, your firm's compensation letter, 2 personal references, and a letter from your priest, whom you do not have. The interview is scheduled for 1 hour. The questions are not about money. The questions are about whether they want to share an elevator with you for the next 30 years. What you've brought. The 14-page packet is bound with a brass clip because someone at your firm told you loose paper reads as uncertain. Your net worth is on page 3, next to a paragraph your lawyer wrote explaining that your bonus structure is variable but historically reliable, which is the financial equivalent of, "I'm a very good driver, actually." The woman to your left on the board is wearing pearls the size of small planets. She hasn't looked at page 3. She's looking at your shoes. The co-op board at 965th is basically a Soho House membership committee, except they can legally turn you down for your last name, and there's no app for it. Nixon-era money, rejected here. New money, Goldman money, rejected here. The rules aren't written because writing them down would be impolite. The impolite part isn't the rejection. The impolite part is everything before the rejection. A man at the far end of the table, Mr. Aldrich, has a yellow legal pad and has written nothing on it, blank, accusatory, and waiting. He asks how you know the Hendersons, who referred you. You say you met at a benefit 2 years ago. He writes something. It is probably not the thing you said. The legal pad has its own opinion about you and has been forming it since you sat down. Of course, money alone doesn't get you in. This is the point. You have enough money. You have made this clear across 14 pages. The board knows it. The board is not moved. In 1986, a Manhattan apartment in a building like this one is priced somewhere between $800,000 and $1.2 million, and the purchase price is not the obstacle. The obstacle is the woman with the planetary pearls deciding whether your particular brand of ambition fits the aesthetic of the lobby. The lobby has an aesthetic. It is very committed to it. You are asked about your travel schedule. You are asked whether you plan to rent the unit at any point. You are asked about pets. Not because pets are prohibited, but because the question tells them something. A woman named Mrs. Corrigan, who has the posture of someone who has been sitting in this exact chair for 25 years, asks whether you cook. You say occasionally. She writes nothing, but tilts her head 3 degrees to the left. The 3 degrees are not favourable. The money is irrelevant, and the references are formalities, and the tax returns are already in a drawer somewhere where they'll sit unread for a decade. What they're actually running is a social X-ray. They're checking whether you vibrate at the right frequency, whether your handshake is confident without being aggressive, whether your wife, who is also in the room, crosses her legs at the ankle or the knee, whether you've made a joke yet, and if so, whether it landed or flopped with a small decisive thud. The interview ends at 6:58. Mr. Aldrich closes the legal pad. You're told you'll hear within 2 weeks. You shake hands around the table. Mrs. Corrigan's handshake is dry and brief, like a receipt being returned. 2 weeks later, a letter arrives on stationery so heavy it feels structural. The board has decided to pursue other applicants at this time. No reason is given. None is required. You move to a doorman building 4 blocks south, which is perfectly fine, and which you will spend the next 3 years describing as a temporary arrangement. You unfold the New York Times on your kitchen counter on Saturday, May 17th, 1986, and the front of the business section carries an excerpt from a commencement speech given the previous day at UC Berkeley by an arbitrager named Ivan Bolsky. The excerpt contains one sentence that the editors have set off in larger type. Greed is healthy. You can be greedy and still feel good about yourself. You read it once. You read it twice. You finish your coffee. You are not sure, in this moment, whether the sentence is a confession, a manifesto, or a weather report. Bosky is not a minor figure. He's running Semilare Corporation. He controls several $100 million in arbitrage positions, and he moves through Manhattan with the specific gravity of a man who has never once been told that a restaurant was full. He has a chauffeured car. He has a Palm Beach estate called Bosky Farm, which is the kind of name you give a property when you want people to know that working farms are beneath you but you admire their aesthetic. He also, as of this morning, has a philosophy. The UC Berkeley graduating class of 1986 sits in the California sun while Bosky tells them greed is healthy. They applaud, politely, briefly, and almost without thinking. This is not a moment of shocked silence. Nobody walks out. Nobody stages a protest on behalf of late-stage capitalism. The man says greed is healthy. The graduating class of one of the great public universities in America applauds politely, and the ceremony continues. It's the most audible thing that has ever been dressed as a graduation speech. What Bosky is actually doing for a living while he delivers this speech. Arbitrage is legal. Ivan Bosky's version of arbitrage is less so. He's been paying people inside corporations for advance notice of mergers and acquisitions, which is insider trading, which is a federal crime, which he knows, which his sources know, which a surprising number of people in Midtown Manhattan either know or have decided not to wonder about too hard. The trades work. They work because they're not really trades. They're the financial equivalent of checking the answer key before the exam and then acting impressed by your own score. November 1986 arrives 6 months after the speech. The SEC has been building a case since a tip from Drexel Burnham Lambert's own compliance department, which is a sentence worth reading again slowly. Borsky agrees to pay $100 million, the largest securities fine in history at that time. He also agrees to cooperate with investigators, which is a polite way of saying he gives up the names. The names include Michael Milken. The $100 million fine is announced. The business section runs it. You read that one twice too. A junior analyst named Todd Pruitt, in the office 2 floors above yours, cuts out the Borsky greed is healthy quote and tapes it to his monitor sometime around March of 1986. It stays there for most of a year. After the November announcement, Todd takes it down. He doesn't replace it with anything. The monitor sits blank above the keyboard for 3 days before someone from the copy room puts a post-it note over the spot that reads out of order, which nobody removes because it seems, in context, accurate. Back in your kitchen on Saturday morning, the coffee is finished. The paper is still open. The sentence sits there in its larger type, doing what sentences in larger type do, insisting that you engage with it on its own terms. The thing about a weather report is that it doesn't argue. It just tells you the conditions. You fold the paper along the original crease, put it on top of the recycling, and go get ready for the rest of your Saturday. The sentence stays in the recycling. You will think about it again on a Tuesday in November when the fine is announced, and it will feel, at that point, considerably less like a manifesto. You arrive at the trading floor at 8:48 a.m. on Monday, October 19th, 1987. The Asian markets have been down all night. The London Open was bad. The futures on the Dow are limit down before the bell rings in New York. The phones on the floor are already ringing in a pattern you have not heard before. The senior trader at the next desk has already taken his suit jacket off, bare, desperate, and oddly honest, which is the first time you have seen him do that before lunch. The opening bell is 12 minutes away, and what is about to happen will rearrange the meaning of every conversation in this room. Let's talk about what limit down means. It means the futures market has already hit its floor, the maximum allowable drop before trading pauses, and the cash market hasn't even opened yet. It means the computers have been running the numbers all night, and the numbers have been coming back wrong. The portfolio insurance programs that everyone bought because they were supposed to function as a floor are now functioning as an accelerant. They were designed to sell automatically when prices fell. Prices are falling, so they're selling, which is making prices fall further. The machines have opinions this morning. Their opinion is, get out. The bell rings at 9:30. By 9:45 you can't get a fill on anything. Orders go in and don't come back. You shout a number at someone across the floor and he shouts a different number back, and neither number means what it meant 20 minutes ago. The phones ring continuously, not in bursts, not in waves, but in a single sustained noise that stops being individual calls and becomes something closer to weather. A clerk named Donnelly is scribbling on a yellow pad so fast the paper tears. He doesn't notice. He keeps writing on the tear. The Dow falls 200 points by noon. Then it falls another 200 points by 2 p.m. The senior trader, the one without his jacket, hasn't spoken a full sentence since 10. He says things like sell it and get me out, and once, quietly, no. By 3:45 the Dow has dropped 508 points, 22.6%, in one day. The largest single-day percentage decline in the history of the exchange, executed live, in real time, while everyone who caused it stood in the same room watching it happen. The acrid smell on the floor, paper, sweat, old cigarette smoke baked into the carpet, has not changed at all. The carpet doesn't know. The portfolio insurance programs weren't rogue. They were doing exactly what they were sold to do. Someone had modelled a controlled descent and instead gotten a feedback loop that ate itself, which is basically a Robin Hood flash crash, except executed by computers the size of refrigerators running on logic no one had thought to stress test against an actual panic. The elegance of the system was the problem. The system was very good at following its instructions. By 4 p.m, it's over. The bell rings. The floor is quiet. In a way, it wasn't quiet this morning, which is a different kind of quiet. Donnelly's yellow pad is on the floor. He doesn't pick it up. Outside on Broad Street, a man in a grey double-breasted suit is standing on the sidewalk looking at nothing in particular. His Hermes tie, the burgundy one with the small print, $75, maybe a birthday gift, is slightly loosened. He's not on the phone. He's just standing there, in the October air, doing the math. You step into the elevator at the firm at 8:11 a.m. on a Monday in October 1991. There is a mailroom clerk in the back of the car you have not seen before. He is wearing a flannel shirt, soft, faded and unbothered, over a t-shirt with the words Pearl Jam printed across it. He is 22. He does not look at you. He looks at the floor numbers. The elevator rises. You feel for the first time since you took this job the small specific sensation of being looked through rather than measured. The decade has, without an announcement, ended. Let's talk about what ended. Not the market. The market recovered, eventually, which is what markets do and what is deeply annoying about them. Not the firm. The firm is still here, slightly fewer people, slightly longer hours, the same marble lobby and the same Hermes calendar on the managing director's wall. What ended is the deal where the objects in your life were doing the performing for you. The flannel shirt does not perform. The flannel shirt is wrinkled, soft, and uninterested in being looked at. Nirvana released Nevermind in September 1991. It sold 300,000 copies in its first week, and then kept going, which nobody at the label predicted, because the people at the label were still, professionally, in 1987. The sound is guitars played with what can only be described as structural resentment. There is nothing in it that wants to be on a BMW dealership showroom floor. This is a significant departure from the previous decade's dominant soundtrack, which wanted almost exclusively to be on a BMW dealership showroom floor. The clerk's name, you will later learn from someone in HR, is Travis. Travis is not impressed by your title. Travis is not impressed by your office, which has a window. Travis is, by all available evidence, not thinking about you at all. This is a new experience. For 8 years, people in this building have been arranged, however casually, around a system of mutual appraisal. Who has the bigger bonus, the better suit, the Rolex with the Jubilee bracelet rather than the oyster? Travis has opted out of the system entirely, the way you might opt out of a timeshare presentation, without guilt, without explanation, just by walking away while the slideshow is still running. And yet the slideshow is still running, somewhere. There are still associates at Skadden Arps billing 2,200 hours a year. There is still a junior banker at some firm eating a 20-minute lunch at a deli counter that smells of pastrami and fluorescent light. The machinery didn't stop. It just lost the cultural weather system that made it feel like destiny rather than a job. By 1991, the S&L crisis has cost taxpayers somewhere between $125 and $160 billion. Milken is 3 years into a plea deal and has paid $600 million in settlement, which is the kind of sentence that sounds severe until you remember what he was paid in 1987, at which point it sounds more like a processing fee. Bosky is already out of minimum security. The men who define the decade's financial logic are, one way or another, fine. The decade had a talent for producing men who were, one way or another, fine. Travis gets off on the 6th floor, where the mailroom is. He nods at nobody in particular as the doors open. The elevator continues upward. You watch the floor numbers and notice, for the first time, a small smudge on the brushed steel panel that someone has tried and failed to wipe clean. The building's cleaning crew comes in at 5 a.m. before anyone arrives, which means their labour exists at a frequency the building itself doesn't quite register. Travis, carrying a canvas bag full of overnight envelopes, will pass their carts in the hallway every morning. He has probably nodded at them too, and there it goes. The suit, the watch, the tie, the brunch reservation, the 4-line phone, the bathroom stall, the celery stalk standing at attention in your Bloody Mary, the doorman who knows what time you got in, the Berkeley speech, the morning of October 19th, the flannel shirt in the elevator, a whole expensive, brittle, beautifully tailored decade, neatly folded. You are not, you'll be relieved to hear, a junior associate at Cravath in 1986. You don't have a co-op interview tomorrow. Nobody is asking you about page 47. The Rolex on the dresser, if there is one, is allowed to stop. The phones, all 4 lines of them, have been quiet for 40 years. Spare a kind thought for Carolyn, who colour-coded the binders by jurisdiction, not by date, and who got it right. For Marcos at the elevator, who held the door an extra 3 seconds without comment. For Yolanda, who walked the child through Central Park while the parents were at the deal close. They were in the building too. Let your shoulders drop. Let the day fade. Let the market do whatever the market is going to do without you. Pull the blanket up. You have a bed. You have a thermostat. Nobody is weighing your business card. Sleep well.